Hey guys, on today's episode, we're working on this 2006 Acura RL with 145,000 miles. Now, a little earlier, my buddy Jeff came in and said that he tried to trade this in and they offered him $1,500 from the dealership, which is way below Kelley Blue Book value. So he said, hey, if you can detail this in one day, post it up online and sell it for more, I'll split the profit with you. So I said, absolutely. So on today's episode, we're gonna go over the step-by-step process for bringing more value to your used car before you sell it. That and a whole lot more on Drive and Protect. Okay, right off the bat, there is a huge difference between detailing a sports car versus something like this, which is a used daily driven car. The sports car over here, I'm trying to go for the last 5, maybe 10% of the details, everything that's very minute. Over here, on the other hand, I'm trying to take a car that's at maybe 20% out of a scale of 1 to 100 and bring it up to 80, the fastest I possibly can, spending the least amount of time and money on products. Now, I will say right off the bat, we are in a professional setting. I have a car lift, I have steam machines, polishers, etc. But you can do this at home for less than $100 in just a few hours on the weekend. As you can see on Kelley Blue Book, the trade-in value is between $1,800 and $2,900 for a fair condition car. Not good, not poor, which I think is a fair assessment on this particular car as it sits right now. To make the greatest return in the least amount of time, you need to focus on 3 areas of selling your car I call clean, dress, and stage. We'll deep dive into each one of these, but for now, here's some of the basic things you'll need if you're not a professional or a weekend warrior. 1 bucket, at least a 2.5 gallon or maybe a 5 gallon, which is super common. It's better to have 2 of those, it doesn't matter what size, but 1 will work if you wash it out in between cleaning the wheels and cleaning the paint to avoid cross-contamination. 5 to 10 microfiber towels, a few terry towels or old microfiber towels if you intend to throw them away when you're done because they're going to get really, really dirty. Car soap, wheel cleaners and tire dressing, interior scents if needed, interior cleaner for leather, plastic carpets, and conditioner, glass cleaner, vacuum and crevice tool, and then finally a water source is super helpful and a few brushes. Again, for those of you with more time, tools, and desire, the detail process can be faster and more effective with shampoo machines, steam machines, compressed air, paint polishers, but it's not vital to a profitable sale. I'm going to show you my professional process for a 1-day turnaround, but pick and choose which of these steps works best for you. But know that most of this can be done with $100 or less of actual product, especially if you go to a self-serve car wash or if you don't own a vacuum or a hose, etc. So you have lots and lots of options. Phase 1 is cleaning. First, fill 1 bucket with car soap and a microfiber wash towel, the other bucket with wheel soap or similar, and a few brushes. Pull out your pressure washer and/or hose and fill up the buckets halfway. If you're in a drought area or live in an apartment, there are hoseless wash products that can be super convenient if you are in those particular situations. I'll put a link above to Frothy Hoseless Lift Kit should you not have access to a hose. Next, thoroughly rinse the wheels and the paint. Now, in this particular car, look how much mud came out of the wheel wells. With the paint rinsed, fill a foam gun with Ammo foam soap and cover the paint and jams. If you don't have a foam gun, then you can wash the paint straight out of the bucket with no pre-wash foamer. On most modern engines, you can cover the area with foam as well. Let it sit and then loosen up the grime while you focus on the wheels and the other areas. But keep in mind, if you're outside working in the sun, start with the wheels first to avoid letting the soap dry on the paint. I'm working indoors and out of the sun, so I can put soap everywhere so I can speed up the process. Okay, so one of the first things I like to do is focus on the wheels. Now these are aftermarket wheels, so you really want to spend some time kind of cleaning them up. That's another factor that the person might look at and go like, ooh, aftermarket wheels, this is cool. See, these are aftermarket wheels, which are kind of cool, American Racing. Mm-hmm. When you're doing that, what you want to do is focus on a few different things. This is called a wheel woolly. It allows you to get the back side of the rim without having to take the wheel off. That's really important because you want to clean up that backside. It adds a lot of contrast. The other thing is if you have a little brush, you can get in here and clean the caliper. Now, when the customer or the new buyer comes in, they look at this, they look at fresh, clean wheels. Again, that's going to up the price for you. On wheels that have been neglected a bit, you'll need a stronger wheel cleaner like Plum to loosen the embedded brake dust. Nowadays, wheels or rims can be even more expensive than the cars themselves, so spend enough time here to put your best foot forward. Immediately after the wheels, I usually work the engines next because I use the same wheel tools to agitate the surface junk. Likewise, don't forget the engine hood jams either, so give them a good scrub and power wash as well. Afterwards, use a microfiber wash towel to agitate the paint surface to release the dirt. I prefer towels instead of wash mitts because the towels are only used once, and when they become dirty, I throw them in the washing machine and grab a new towel to avoid dirty towels scratching the paint. This is the best way to minimize scratching during the wash process. You see, one towel gives you 8 sides to wipe with, so flip as it becomes soiled to a new side and then wipe again. Okay, now that the paint in the wheels are clean, you can see the paint is still wet here. Now what happens a lot when you go to sell a car is somebody comes in, they look at it, they go like this, and they always go like that. Subconsciously or not, they're always touching the paint. But if you can hear, I'll put the microphone real close. You hear that? It's almost like sandpaper. So that's contamination on the surface of the paint. One way to get that out is a thing called clay. Now clay bar, a lot of people think it's just like Play-Doh or that kind of thing. No, it's specific to paint. So make sure you find clay specific to paint like this one here. What I like to do is grab that same mitt that we used to wash the car earlier, then we just rinsed it. You can spray and squeeze, there you go, a little bit of soap like that on there, get the clay bar wet. So now you have lubrication. You have it in this patty-like shape, and you're gonna go back and forth. Now the way this works is through friction, not necessarily downward pressure. So I'm not pushing a lot of weight down. I'm just going back and forth nice and quickly. And as you do that, now I just did this section. Now I wanna go in with my hand, right? You hear it now? That's just my hand. It's not like this. See? Massive difference between the two of them. So go around the car, it'll take you 2 seconds, and this is what the clay bar looks like when you have tons of contamination on the surface of the paint. This will take you 15 to 20 minutes. Now, you can polish it afterwards like we're gonna do, or you can put wax on it. Either way, if you do this beforehand, the paint's gonna look significantly better. Now, because this car sat outside for many years, the paint is extremely contaminated. Yours may not be this bad, so skip this step if it's unnecessary, as it can cause light scratching in the process. However, since this paint is atrocious, I have to polish it anyways, so it's a prudent approach now to just get this done. Now check this out. After just a few sections, you can see how much junk was just pulled out of the paint. When you see this, you have to make sure that you knead the clay bar. You mix it so that it doesn't become full of the black and brown contaminants and then reapplied to the paint. You need to mix that a whole bunch to have a fresh patty and then start again.
Oh yeah, 100 times better.
When you're done with the whole process, rinse again. And at this point, if you decide that you don't need or want to polish your paint, then dry the paint with Hydrate or Hydrate Pro method for a quick protection and shine in lieu of a full polishing or hand waxing. This alone will give you the quickest return for, 20, 30 minutes of work before you trade in or sell your car. For the record, we're not going to do that. We're going to go over a few different things. We are going to polish it, but if you weren't going to polish it, just do this step and it'll give you a big return for very little work. Next, clean and dry the door jambs with a throwaway towel, either a terry towel or an old microfiber towel, not to be used again on the paint. Your door jambs are what I refer to as the armpits of your car. Now, you don't want to leave them stinky and gross, and I guarantee you the new buyer will open the driver's side door, so show them how well your car is maintained by maintaining your door jambs. Likewise, if you have compressed air, definitely use it. It is a detailer's best friend, especially on engines and door jambs and wheels, interiors, etc.
Now, before we work on the interior, I put the camera over there so you could see something pretty cool. Now, if you look in this general direction, it's pretty shiny. Now, before it wasn't like that, and we haven't polished or done anything to it except claying. What clay does is, think of it like one of those Bure strips on your nose or your face. It peels out, it kind of pulls out all the junk that's embedded in the paint. Now, what happens is when it's embedded in the paint, the light hits it and reflects and refracts everywhere, and it just doesn't really look very good. It doesn't bounce back. Now, again, we haven't polished it yet, but just by claying it alone, you can see there's a little bit of reflection here. That's why I put the camera. Now, come over here. I'm gonna show you underneath the light. Look how horrible the paint is. So that's just proving. Do you see that there? That is just awful. It is swirled out. It is really, really bad. This is years of neglect. But the point I'm trying to make, just after claying at a certain angle, you can actually see a little bit of light come back because there's no contamination left. So we're gonna need to polish this just because this one's horrific. You can do it by hand and you can do it by machine. But before we do that, let's focus on the interior.
On the inside, remove anything that wouldn't have been in the car on the dealership's showroom floor, as well as the floor mats. Just pull everything out. On the plastic and leather, I used Ammo lather and a scrub brush. Again, everything you see here is at AMMONYC.com. I'll put a link in the description. And I'll start off with the steering wheel first because anyone who buys a car always seems to just get into the driver's seat and put their hands on the steering wheel. Same concept on the center console, the buttons, the shifter, and the cup holders. You want to remove anything that reminds that person of that you have been in the car before them. Same concept on the center console, buttons, shifter, and the cup holders. Now, typically the armrest is also a super hot spot for body oils, meaning the forearms. If that's the case, you have to use a degreaser instead of lather to try to pick up and remove all those oils. Same concept on the door handles. They tend to be super greasy as well, so keep that in mind. Now, if you're having a good time and you're super into it, don't be afraid to scrub the pedals and the kick panels as well. Again, this is not a top priority, but it does take 3 minutes and it goes a long way. Afterwards, I typically work on the carpets at this point so they have enough time to dry if required. First, I vacuum, then I spray shag carpet cleaner and scrub it in with a carpet scrubber. As you can see here, this scrubber has two different types of bristles. One is stiff red nylon in the middle here to pull the carpet up, and the rim on the outside has boar hair edges to carry the cleaning product around the fabric as you're cleaning. These are obviously custom made, but check out the description below or visit my website for more info. They're really useful. Okay, full disclosure, I'm not expecting you to have a steamer or a steam vac, but if you do for some reason, they are great because they don't put down as much water as a hot water extractor, so the carpets don't need as much time to dry, especially in this sort of one-day turnaround we're trying to do. In this case, the two front carpets, meaning the ones that are used the most, need a little bit more work. So if you have it, use it. Otherwise, you can use a drill brush and a wet vac. It's super helpful as well. If it's sunny in your area and the mats are wet, please put them outside. That will speed up the drying process, obviously. And then you can work the interior of the car as well, but do not over soak the carpets because you cannot obviously take them out easily and put them in the sun. So this would complete phase one of cleaning your car.
Yes? Now with phase one done cleaning, we're gonna hop into step number 2, which is dressing the vehicle. Now, most of the time you think of dressing as putting some oily, greasy thing on the dashboard. That's not exactly what I'm talking about, but I am talking about creating some pop in the paint, in the wheels, inside, etc. Now, specifically on the paint, if you look at it here, this is extraordinarily bad. So much so that I do think you're gonna be penalized for having the condition this bad. Most likely this has been run through automatic car wash multiple times a year, et cetera, et cetera. And the condition, when you trade it in or you have somebody look at it, they're gonna go, wow, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So from a driveway detailer perspective, I've split this into 3 sections to kind of give you an idea of what you can do and the progress. Hey, you spend a little bit more time, here's the results you're gonna get. And you have to decide based on the condition of your car, how much time you have and your skill set, how much do I want to put into this mentally? So right off the bat here, I just straight put Carnauba wax on it. It'll take you 15, 20, 30 minutes, etc. And it'll look much better. What's happening is all those scratches that are hitting the sun and they're just all over the place, you're filling those in and it looks better. Does it look fantastic? In my opinion, no, but it does look better. Step number 2 over here, I hand polished first. So I'm sort of cutting down those edges of the scratches so they're not as violent, meaning the sun isn't going in and bouncing out and refracting everywhere and just kind of getting your eye going, wow, what's going on? Much like this up here. So I'm sort of burnishing that down a little bit, then putting wax in it, creating a nice little flat area. It looks deep, rich, much better, great. It is a little bit more time. It is taxing on your shoulders, so keep that in mind. Step 3 over here, what I did was I used it on a machine, a dual action polisher. Now they're incredibly easy these days versus the old school rotaries. Dual action polishers are a little bit more friendly. I used a wool pad, polish, and then I put on wax, and it looks absolutely fantastic. Now, just for you, just to keep your mind kind of going from a professional perspective, there's another step, and there's even a couple of more steps, but realistically speaking, there's another step over here that I didn't do where you could compound, polish, and then of course put coatings or wax on it. But because we're selling this car, I just wanted to show you the spectrum of everything that can be done. Each is gonna add a little bit more time, but I do think you're gonna get a return on your investment.
So with that, I pulled the tape to really see the difference and where the value may lie. As I mentioned, on the far left, just Carnauba wax to fill in the scratches. And then under the tape, you can see our control, so to speak, that was left untouched. To the right of that in the middle is hand rubbed, then waxed. It's a little better with respect to the scratches being seen around the light. And all the way to the far right, that's a one-step polish with a machine and then hand wax. And now you can see a much tighter, less scattered ring around the light for more reflection and shine to the buyer's eyes. Now, is the far right perfect? I would say no, but going after perfection here will likely have diminishing returns on a $5,000 or $6,000 daily driven car, but it would be a huge or significant increase on a $100,000 to $200,000 car if you were to trade it in or to sell it. So just keep all that in mind. Now, with all that said, I started polishing. Now, this took me about 2 hours, just about 5 minutes under 2 hours to do a one-step process on the entire car. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but it's actually fairly quick, all things considered. If you haven't tried polishing your car, my goal for the last 12 years of YouTube videos is to encourage you to just give it a shot. It's not as difficult as it looks. It's more time consuming and a bit taxing on your back, etc. But it's incredibly fun and mentally therapeutic. So, okay, there's my sales pitch for you. If it's a no-go, that's cool too. Just find a reputable detailer in your area. After just 10 minutes on the hood, look at the 50/50. Massive difference. After that, I put the headphones on, had my Pandora rocking, and away I went. Now check this out, the trunk was really bad. This is probably where the dealer banged the most price out of the car during trade-in. I have no idea what happened here, but it was extremely scratched. If you guys have any ideas, leave a comment below and I'll ask Jeff in the meantime if he was using his trunk to fillet fish or something. Anyhow, we had to do some work here. When I finished the paint, the headlights needed some love as well. Now, they weren't really bad, but definitely not equal to how good the paint now looked, so I used the same technique on the lenses as I did the paint. That process cleaned them right up, and I didn't even use sandpaper as I usually do in really bad cases. This was just a quick and easy clean, and after a few passes and less than 2 minutes per side, the difference is noticeable. Once I finished dressing the paint for sale, you can see that there's leftover residue and fiber everywhere, which is somewhat normal in this process. So instead of using a gallon of spray wax to remove it, it's just way easier and quicker to rinse the paint and then dry with Hydrate Pro to leave behind a deep shine without actually having to wax it. After the rinse, soak your microfiber towel in water and then wring it out. Next, apply a thin line of Hydrate Pro to the towel and spread it around the fibers and then wipe the paint. You'll be drying the paint and adding shine to it at the same time. When you're done, follow up with Reflex Pro Top Coat to remove the drips and all those sort of things, and just to add a little bit of shine in 3 minutes or less. Finally, you should dress the trim. Now, for a quick sale, I'm not going to use Frame Pro as it's a longer lasting product that may be unnecessary here, but it's really up to you. Instead, I'm going to use mud tire dressing, which is water-based, on the engine plastics. Apply a light layer of dressing and then buff it off so it doesn't look wet. That's the secret. You don't want a greasy, wet look. That's not what we're going for. We want a deep, rich, original, clean-looking engine. You can get all that by just buffing it off to a matte finish after applying it. Again, the same concept on the wheels and on the inside of the car. Of course, you're not using mud for the inside of the car. For the leather and plastic parts, you're using mousse conditioner to add depth, moisture, and that new car smell and feel. The trick to applying any conditioners on the inside of your car is to buff it off to a matte finish after a minute or two of it soaking into the plastic and leather.
Does it look less
You do
shiny
not
now?
want to have a wet or shiny interior. It screams bad detail, and it's actually not healthy for the material as it traps heat and can cause premature cracking.
Okay, before phase 3 of the process, which is staging the vehicle for sale, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. That, of course, is the seat. You can see right here, there's some damage, and there's some damage over there on the passenger seat. Now, because we have 1 day to do it, I'm not going to address this. But if you did want to address it, there are companies that can come right to your house. They're relatively inexpensive. One in particular is called FiberNew.com. They actually repaired my Audi R8 seat. They dyed this little area here, and it looked absolutely fantastic when you're done. So there are options for you at home if you do think it's going to increase the value of your car.
Much like staging a home, the idea is to remove anything that reminds the potential buyer that anyone owned the car before them. Now, obviously, they know it, but we are trying to pull at their subconscious here. So as cool as Columbia and Harvard are on t-shirts, the stickers got to go. Using a razor blade, or in this case, a long-handled razor blade, is super helpful to cut through the glue on the glass. Even if you went to Harvard, nobody cares. Next, I love adding stripes to the carpets. Now, this takes about 2 minutes to do, and it gives you this clean, fresh feeling. To do it, use a stiff bristle brush, pull all the fibers to you at first, then back and forth to create lines. It's super easy, but ridiculously effective. At my first car wash years ago, I used to have a taxi company that would come in daily for these stripes before they picked up a certain client to take him to New York City. He said that it reminded him of Yankee Stadium grass. So you can do this on that. You can also do it on the interior carpets that are like in the car, not just the mats themselves. It's a really cool thing. It takes you 5 seconds to do. Afterwards, I clean the windows. Now, although this should be in the first phase, meaning cleaning, you always leave it till the end to avoid having to repeat it after polishing and so on. It's just prudent to do it now. If you have TouchUp or want to do TouchUp, you can do it now as well. Just use a bit of isopropyl alcohol to clean the spot first, then apply it with a brush, but dab brush. You're not actually brushing or painting with it, you're dabbing with it, or you can use a needle in a syringe. Again, this is a bit extreme, but helpful as a pro. I have a full video on TouchUps if you want to go down the rabbit hole. I'll put a link above. Lastly, if your car has a smell, be sure to use a sanitizer and deodorizer to render the smell neutral if at all possible. For this, I'm using EPA-approved Ammo Restore on the carpets in the high-traffic areas. In a pinch, you can use Febreze or whatever, but avoid fruity or minty and sort of like unique scents that aren't original to the car. So, with all of that, for just a few hours of work, the Acura looks and smells fantastic. After one day, we've cleaned, dressed, and staged it. We put it over there, took a few pictures. Now the only thing left to do is to post it online and find a buyer. That afternoon, I took all my photos and then posted it on Craigslist. If you want to learn how to photograph a car professionally, check out my interview with Mike D'Ambrosio to find out how he creates his shots in just a few easy steps. I'm using Craigslist today because it's easy and relatively inexpensive, plus this car isn't super special. However, if your car is rare or unique, etc., try Bring a Trailer or carsandbids.com, eBay Motors, and of course Haggerty Marketplace, to name just a few. With the Craigslist ad marinating overnight, in the morning I had 5 inquiries, 3 were serious, 2 were definitely not. So I took the first reasonable person named Karen and invited her to the studio with the car backed in and under the big lights. Again, staging the car is critical here. Someone's going to walk in, you want them to feel a certain way when they see it. That's why showrooms are built the way that they are. Obviously, you may not have a shop, and clearly you may not feel comfortable bringing some random person to your location. That all makes sense. Either way, just find a pretty public location that feels good so that the person comes in and goes, wow, this thing looks amazing. I have to take her home.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm Karen.
I'm Larry.
Nice to meet you, Larry.
Meet you. Come on in. There's the car.
This place is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
Cool, right?
Fantastic.
So, it's black. It looks clean.
It looks amazing, like brand new.
Yeah. I just polished up the headlights. We did a little bit of work on the hood. Definitely the trunk. Let's see. These are aftermarket wheels, which are kind of cool. American Racing. Mm-hmm. Polished everything out, but yeah, feel free to hop in and take a look. I'll give you a tour.
It's incredible.
It's a good car.
It looks brand new.
Good.
I'm
Pictures did
amazed.
it justice.
I'm amazed.
And the look of it. What are you thinking? You interested?
I like it. I am interested. You know.
I'm at 6,000 on Craigslist. Again, like I told you, you're the first person. I have a couple other people today that are super interested.
Right.
But I'd love to move this thing.
Because of the high mileage, I'm thinking like 5.
5. All right. To make this so I don't have to have 5 other meetings today, what if we split the difference? 5,500. That's about as low as I can go on this. Look at this detail. Come on.
You did a great job on the detail. Yeah, I guess
You
I'll
good?
take it. Thank you.
Oh, this is awesome. Well, guys, there you have it. We just sold the car to Karen, which is super cool. She drove her car here, so she's gonna come back in a little bit and pick it up. But the backstory is Jeff was gonna trade it in for $1,500. We just sold the car for $5,500, netting $4,000. As Jeff said before, if I get more than $5,000, we can split the difference between the two of them. So that's 4,000 divided by 2. That means I just made about $2,000 less any of the equipment and things that I did for my day, which was about 9.5, 10 hours. It was a long day, I'll granted. This car is pretty rough, but one day, $2,000, and to sell a car. The car looks fantastic. It spent about, I think, 9 or 10 hours on Craigslist. The market is ridiculously hot, so it sold quick. I have to go call 4 more people and tell them, hey, sorry, the first lady actually bought it. Overall, I couldn't be happier, but there are a few things that you can do when you go to sell your car to make it look so much better. Now, you can pick and choose which one. Obviously, we're in a professional setting. You may not polish the paint. You can just put wax on it, etc. But the more you put into it, the more you're gonna get out of it. As always, guys, if you have any questions, shoot me an email, larry@ammonyc.com. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.